Chavez, and down Obrador went. I think, Chavez could become a little bit of poison for even the leftists in Latin America.
Pat, we are looking now at two pictures here on our screen. One is Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the leader of Iran, who is holding a press conference at the UN. This was hyped by the Iranians. They invited the world press to come and hear him. On the other side of the screen, we are looking at Harlem, where we are expected to see the Venezuelan president, Hugo Chavez. We're joined on the phone now by NBC's Ron Allen, who is there in Harlem. Ron, explain to us the scene there and why is he speaking in Harlem?
Well, it is a very excited church here that is waiting for Mr. Chavez to get here. The event is scheduled to begin shortly. This is to kick off a program that is essentially a fuel assistance program for poor people in the United States that the Venezuelan government started last year after Hurricane Hugo. It is sending thousands, millions and millions of barrels of discounted oil to poor communities in the United States, including here in New York, to help poor people get through the winter. It's something that the Bush administration and Chavez's critics are certainly not excited about, but there's very little they can do about it. And people here say the United States buys millions and millions of barrels of oil from Venezuela every day at the full price, so why not get it at a 40% discount? Chavez, of course, is doing this to help his image in the United States, to try and rub one in the face, if you will, of the administration. It's obviously great public relations for him, at least in some parts of this country. And there are people here from as far away as Alaska, Maine, Minnesota, who have been flown here by Citgo, which is essentially now a Venezuelan government-owned company, to greet Mr. Chavez and to kick off the launch of this program. This year, they're trying to double the amount of oil that they send to the United States. And while this is not a huge amount of oil, it's a very small percentage of what the United States imports. It does have a lot of symbolic value. Here you have poor people in America saying, Mr. Chavez is helping us, why can't our own government help us? And for some families last winter, this meant a savings as much as $200–300 on their fuel bills. And you're talking about people, of course, who sometimes face the difference between buying food for their families or heating their homes. This has been
so
taking
Ron,
place
he's likely to
like
find a very
York,
receptive
Boston,
audience. He's likely to find a very receptive audience there in Harlem.
He's going to find a wildly enthusiastic reception here, Nora. These people are his fans. They are in solidarity with him because they see him as a champion for the poor. And listening to the speech that he gave at the UN, I imagine many of these people here understand what Chavez is saying, because this is a part of the country that did not help put President Bush in office. So there's a lot of politics going on here. There's a lot of propaganda going on here. But for the people who are going to receive this discounted oil during the winter, it's about basic dollars and cents. It's about heating their homes. It's about getting through the winter.
We know, of course, that Hugo Chavez is in some ways a socialist, and so he is largely speaking to the poor. We saw him yesterday, of course, holding up the book by Noam Chomsky. He is again trying to cultivate this base here in Harlem, if you will, and encourage them by just all those things that Ron Allen just talked about. I also want to update our viewers on what we're looking on the other side of the screen, and that is the Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who has called a press conference at the United Nations. He began by reciting some verses of the Holy Quran. Let's listen in for just a moment.
Believe in God and believe in justice. At the UN General Assembly, I raised a new point after covering problems facing mankind today and just sort of reviewing them, talking about some conflicts and wars and the problems we face and the atmosphere of threat we face. I tried to touch on some of the root causes of our problems. Some root causes of today's problems facing humanity has to do with the international system, a system that is remained with us since World War II. emanating from the concept of a group of victors emerging from a world war and ruling the world. But that is an old system because it leads some to believe that they have more rights to rule the affairs of the world than others, to run world affairs. And as a result, justice is hurt as long as this system prevails in the world. It is not possible for all humanity to taste freedom in the full sense of the word, as well as justice in the full sense of the word. When we look at the Security Council, we see that some members of the Council are in fact only one party to many conflicts of the world. They are involved, in fact, in many conflicts around the world. They have had a direct they're a direct party to many conflicts and have created them. Nonetheless, they sit in judgment of world affairs at the Security Council when they are party to the conflict themselves. We think and feel that this system must change. We believe that all nations should enjoy equal rights, for all human beings should be respected. All nations must be respected. All have the right to a dignified life and to enjoy justice, and more importantly, perhaps, to enjoy peace and tranquility. International organizations must therefore pave the way so that, and lead the way so that all nations can, without any pressure or imposition of political or economic nature, to defend their rights and feel that they're able to do so. The world system must be able to absorb the confidence and the trust of all nations around the globe in order to implement and enforce justice in the best manner. Regretfully, there is a great mistrust among nations and people today, because they feel they are unable to find and achieve their rights through international fora. We must find a solution. For 60 years of past failed experience is perhaps enough. The world conditions have changed. Many governments and groups that had no role in World War II regretfully are impacted by the consequences.
And we are listening to
of
Iranian
World War
President
II.
Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who is holding a press conference there and is going on in some long remarks before addressing reporters' questions. You know, it's worth bringing up, of course, that as we're watching Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the Venezuelan leader, are on the other side of the screen. These two men who have both offered hateful speeches against the United States and personal rebukes of President Bush. They are remaining in the United States to get more media coverage today. What's interesting is that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad last night was granted an audience with the Council on Foreign Relations, which, for people who don't know that is, it is considered the most experts on foreign relations. It is a heady group in New York City. And many Jewish leaders were very angry at the Council on Foreign Relations for giving Mahmoud Ahmadinejad that opportunity to essentially spend time with the Council on Foreign Relations. There was a dinner planned with him, and Jewish leaders objected to that, of breaking bread, they said, with a man who has called for the destruction of Israel. That dinner was canceled, but still there was a meeting held with him. We heard from the Israeli foreign minister yesterday, who said there is no greater challenge to our values than those posed by the leaders of Iran. In other words, Israel saying we have no greater threat than Iran. Clearly the Israelis unhappy about a lot of the media coverage and press as Iran's President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, or whether you like it or you don't like it, has been a star at the United Nations, certainly in the past couple of days. I'm going to bring in Pat Buchanan again. Pat, it is noteworthy. This is a leader that has been ostracized by the United States. The president won't meet with him face to face. We won't talk to the Iranians. Many of the Europeans are also urging Iran to change its ways when it comes to uranium enrichment. But now this man appears to be quite emboldened, even on the cover of Time magazine.
Look, this man is chillingly effective. That's a phrase I heard last night as I watched him with another conservative. He is extraordinarily effective. He is riveting in his answers. He is not only playing to his base here, I mean, he does this as well as Chavez does it badly. He's talking to the Islamic world, the whole Islamic world. When he hits the Holocaust here, he says, we didn't do that. You did that in Europe, and why should the Palestinians pay for it? This is an argument that resonates across the Arab world and the Islamic world, and now he's broadening it to say, look, the winners of World War II, the United States, Britain, and France, Russia, and China, why are you running the world when all the rest of us, we've grown in strength? He's talking there to India. He's talking to Brazil. He's talking to third world nations. He is elevating himself, using America as a foil, into the rival of the President of the United States as the leader of all the forces that challenge American global hegemony. This is as impressive as Chavez is foolish. If I can comment on the Harlem thing, that is going to hurt Chavez. It's going to hurt the Democrats. If the Republicans are smart, they will get up and demand that the Democrats also denounce Chavez, who clearly has support in Harlem, and that splits the Democratic base.
Pat, let's return back to the Iranian president for a moment.
Right.
I think you hit the nail on the head. As many people have said, he is crazy, but he is not stupid. And we have received many emails at NBC News and MSNBC asking why we've granted what some people call this madman so much airtime, if you will. But as you point out, in listening to the comments of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who was elected by the people of Iran, it does provide a window into the thinking of many people in that world, or at least the leaders of Iran and the type of leadership that they're providing. And it gives us a window on that. That's important in trying to understand and deal with the Iranians and others as well, right?
I agree with you 100%. This is a man of extraordinary self-confidence. You saw it in that interview with Brian Williams, the interview.
And he's just 5'4".
And Anderson Cooper, and he walks into the Council on Foreign Relations. He accepts invitation. He seeks out forums. And the manner in which he conducts himself, I mean, he's a man utterly assured of himself. And there is this element of the calm, collected, of a fanatic. He's someone that is totally assured. I find his interviews, I must say, some of the most impressive and riveting of anyone I've ever heard. And maybe the reason is that fanaticism, that total belief in himself. Frankly, he's been I think, a Revolutionary Guard who put his life on the line. Here is a man who does, I think, deeply believe the 12th Imam is coming back, and he is moving on with the forces of history, and that is what comes through. Bottom line is, you are right. I think we ought to see more of him. We don't want war with these people over there, and the President of the United States may not want to talk to him, but we should talk to him, and if not him, the people around him who can control him.
But as this Iranian leader may be building a nuclear bomb, certainly the United States believes that he may be doing that with the enrichment of uranium. That is the concern also of the international community. Is he, however, even though there have been deadlines imposed by the world community, August 31st was one of them, that he was supposed to halt uranium enrichment. That's gone and passed. The President of the United States saying that he will face consequences. That has been going on for months, for a long period of time. It's been 3 years since he called Iran part of the axis of evil. And yet Iran continues down the path with no one holding it to account, in part because China and Russia have so many economic interests in Iran. What will stop this country and their nuclear ambitions?
Well, here's what it is. He is doing this deliberately, and he's saying to his people, incidentally, all of whom believe Iran has a right under the NPT to enrich uranium for peaceful power. He says that's what we're doing, so that rallies his base and keeps his country completely behind him. I'll tell you why he won't stop it. That's the only card he's got to play against the Americans and the Brits and the French and the Germans. If he comes up and says, all right, we're going to stop all enrichment as long as the talks go on, what kind of leverage does he have? He's not given up that card unless we pay for it. Now, what I believe, and I trust I'm not mistaken, is this man doesn't want war with the United States or with Israel. Israel could destroy him in an afternoon. He's going to take it further and further and further until we appear to crawl to him. But I don't think he's going over the edge to war. If you look at the mullahs, they've been in power for 27 years. They haven't started a single war. Why? They see themselves as inheriting the future, and America is one of the countries of the past. And if that's where you're going, you don't want to get in a war now if the future belongs to you, and I think he believes that.
All right, Pat Buchanan, once again to remind our viewers, we are watching dueling pictures here of two men who are antagonistic foes of the United States. Iran's President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad addressing the world press at the United Nations this Thursday morning. Also, we see a room there in Harlem where we are expecting to hear from Venezuela's President Hugo Chavez. Of course, Venezuela, one of the largest producers of oil in the world, and Hugo Chavez talking about delivering cheaper oil to those in Harlem, an economically depressed area of New York. That's why he's there. He hopes that this will be a receptive audience, or as NBC's Ron Allen said, a wildly enthusiastic audience, that Hugo Chavez, who just yesterday called the president a devil no less than 8 times before the United Nations and suggested that Mr. Bush needs to see a psychologist. So we're watching these two men as they remain in New York City, seeking additional media attention here in the United States and around the world as they continue to rebuke the United States and the efforts of Mr. Bush. We return now to Pat Buchanan. Pat, let's talk about Hugo Chavez. We've been talking about the Iranian leader. One of the interesting things that I think many people don't know about is the movement in Southern America that Hugo Chavez has been pressing. Remember, everybody has seen those pictures. Of course, Hugo Chavez, the Venezuelan leader, spent a lot of time with Fidel Castro visiting him as he has been sick. Explain what the Venezuela president is trying to foment in South America.
What he's doing is he's Latin America, clearly, in many cases in Latin America, but clearly in Mexico and elsewhere. There's a growing dissatisfaction with what they see as America's new world hegemony, the global trade agreements the United States has fashioned to bring the whole world together. And he's sort of the revolutionary resistance to that. And he's got a victory in Bolivia in Evo Morales. But in Peru, his man lost at the same time because he was tied to Chavez. The same thing happened with Obrador in Mexico. And in Nicaragua, our old friend Danny Ortega, Ronald Reagan's old friend, is trying to make a comeback. What they're doing is they're trying to recreate the Third World, the Bandung Conference, Third World against the United States and the West. But Chavez has, in a way, broken his pick, I think, with his performance here. And frankly, I think, in a way, he tried to outdo Ahmadinejad, and he failed to do it. And the Iranian leader has put himself on a par with the President of the United States. Chavez is losing as much as he is gaining in Latin America because the Bolivians have cut off the Brazilians, and a lot of folks down there don't want any part of that. And when you get, I mean, in Mexico even, the conservative winning and Obrador sinking because he's associated with Chavez, Chavez looks less like the wave of the future.
All right, as these two men remain in New York and we watch these pictures, Pat Buchanan, thank you very much for that great analysis. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
We also want to update our viewers on something else we're watching in Union, Missouri. Of course, remember, Shannon Torres is that woman who is just entering now a Missouri courtroom where she is expected to be arraigned on charges that she kidnapped that newborn after slashing the mother's throat. This woman is 36 years old. She could get life in prison if convicted. Authorities say that Torres abducted the week-old Abigail Woods, in part because she had miscarried a baby of her own. We're going to continue to follow this breaking news. More right after the break.
Money Minute is brought to you by
we do? What are we supposed to do? Well, given the context that in the past 27 years you've demonstrated so much hostility towards our nation. Well, and let us not forget, you're just a few countries talking like that with us. Our logic is quite clear and simple. I think everybody understands what we're saying. We say that nuclear fuel cycle for peaceful purposes, granted, if it's a good thing, should be good for everyone. And if it's a bad act, it should be bad for everyone. It should be banned for everyone. Throughout our history, our country has not taken away the rights of any other country, has not initiated war against any other country, has not been an aggressor, has had no territorial claims over other countries. We love all nations and countries. Last year, let us recall, when the Katrina happened, my administration announced readiness to dispatch relief aid to the victims of Katrina. We suffered from the pain that the victims of Katrina suffered. When we saw bodies floating on waters, when we saw homeless people, we felt that we need to help. This comes, might I say, from our religion, but also from our culture, from our beliefs. We believe in peace everywhere. And so when we speak of Palestine, it's because we don't want to see war there. We don't want a continuation of displacement and death and destruction. The destruction of homes, the death of young people on their way to school or from school to home. We want people to feel safe and secure and not fear imprisonment. So our proposals on Palestine are quite clear. We have proposed a referendum. We've had enough of an experience over 60 years. All failed, tens and tens of solutions, simply because they did not give justice to all sides. Justice means allowing as well the Palestinian people to decide over its own fate. It is a right they must enjoy. It is the right of all human beings. Why should some people do not recognize such rights for the Palestinian people directly? It seems to me that it's the Palestinian nation that would be convenient if it is wiped off the map of the world. Why should a nation be destroyed as such? They are human beings. They have children, women, daughters, men. They care for each other. They're human beings who've been living in that homeland for many years. They have been displaced, though. On the other hand, there has been an effort to bring others from all over the world to place in that territory. Now, this is unprecedented in world history. Where in the UN Charter is this allowable and permissible? Is there a law that endorses, not so much permissible, but it might endorse the displacement of a whole nation and its replacement by another group and the establishment of a state by the second group to rule the fate of the first group? Now, even if Ahmadinejad, even if I as a person would keep my silence, do you think that such injustice will go unnoticed? Such aggression will go unnoticed? This is a wrong assumption to make, because nations are awake and they move forward. Nations will reawaken, and they have already, might I say. So it's wrong to think that this is a problem with me, with Ahmadinejad as a humble person. No, it is a question for humanity. You're facing public voices in Venezuela, in Argentina, in Brazil, in Sudan, in South Africa, in China, Indonesia, Japan, and China, all across the world. People are upset by the aggression committed there. Let us recall what happened recently in Lebanon. No matter what religion or belief people belonged to, they condemned what happened in Lebanon because people are more aware. Even yesterday in New York, we saw that after a few days of heavy propaganda in the media, there were even ads as long as a whole page. 100 people, maybe more or less, gathered, support perhaps with a Zionist agenda, and their buses were all the same. It seems they had rented buses to all come here together, or maybe these buses were, I mean, I don't even know if, were these people paid? But what I do want to say is that there are hundreds of millions of other people around the world who spend their own money to gather, demonstrate, publish, and raise awareness about the aggression that happens in Palestine and condemn those acts. Now, some people think if they accuse me as being a terrorist, as a murderer, as being anti-Jew, that they can solve the problem that is in Palestine. No, I'm not anti-Jew. Jews are respected by everyone like all human beings, and I respect them very much. Let us remember that in Palestine there are Muslims, Christians, and Jews who live together. We speak of the Palestinian nation, of a people all in all, embracing everyone. I never have said the Muslims in Palestine alone should decide about their fate. They used to live freely together, but ever since the arrival of the British, with the imperialistic goals they had, and then the arrival of the Zionist system of thinking into that land, the problems were created. So why not let the people there decide for themselves, and then let's see what happens. Let's give that a chance.
I'm sorry, I cannot have a follow-up. Fox News, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. Eric Shawn of Fox News. For 18 years, our country hid its nuclear program until it was revealed by a dissident. The IEA says there are still many questions left with your nuclear program. Mr. President, why should anyone trust what you say?
Well, I believe that we need to put this in context. For over 27 years, we feel under attack, and the U.S. government calls us a terrorist. Now, let us recall that a large number of our government officials were assassinated by a group who are recognized as a terrorist here, but nonetheless get to walk in the U.S. Congress and lobby against the Iranian government. Many of my own friends lost their lives walking on the streets in Tehran with their wives and children. They were assassinated by these same terrorists that you're referring to, and they, let us recall, were then later supported by the U.S. government. We have not hidden anything. We are working transparently. We are working within the framework of the NPT, and according to NPT provisions, every country has the right to enjoy the fuel cycle. 6 months before giving UF6 to centrifuge machines, we have to inform the agency. We've even taken that step to inform them when uranium enrichment occurs, when the activities happen, 6 months in advance, according to provisions. It's interesting that American officials should say that we're hiding things. Now, let us see. Will the American group's government allow the press to come and visit their nuclear facilities, their nuclear weapons arsenals? We've opened everything for everyone to see. If you come to Iran, you can go and see for yourself. It's actually an open area. Students go and visit it. Teachers do. University professors go and see it. Even people who work in the forest, or even people who graze their sheep there. I'm talking about villagers. People go and visit there. They know where everything is. The bottom line is we do not need a bomb, unlike what others think. Regretfully, some believe that the nuclear bomb can be effective in international relations. They're wrong, because the time for nuclear bombs has ended. We know that these nuclear arsenals will not benefit anyone. They have to spend, so to say, so much money destroying them. If the nuclear bomb could have saved anyone, it would have prevented the collapse of the Soviet Union. If the nuclear bomb could have created security, it would have prevented perhaps September 11. If the nuclear bomb could have done anything, it could have perhaps stopped the Palestinian Intifada. Today is a time of thought and ideas. We know that, and we felt that across the world. And let me say that at the same time, we are Muslims, and based on a decree given by the leader of the Islamic Republic, moving towards having a nuclear bomb is banned and forbidden. But therefore, no one has the right to move in this direction. In our country, it is not permissible. Now, let me say again, I believe this all is a political issue. At least the politicians know it is, and of course they have an outlet to speak their views well.
Next three questions will be Loria, Al Hayat, and Reuters. Lorian, please, Lebanon.
Yad Zahil, Lorient Le Jour, Beirut. Mr. President, we all know how important your role is in Lebanon, in Syria, and in the Middle East. Will you be ready to press the Hezbollah to disarm in order to get peace in Lebanon?
Iran is a large and powerful country. Its spiritual influence in the world is very effective. Naturally, given the long civilization of the country, we have an impact on the region. I like to stress that Lebanon's internal affairs is its own affairs. We don't interfere in its affairs. We don't want to, because we believe that people in Lebanon, various groups in Lebanon, are strong enough to discuss issues among themselves and resolve problems with each other. We speak at an international level. We like to fix problems at an international level and do not involve ourselves and would not like to in internal affairs.
Please, Reuters.
On Lebanon, I'm not sure I understood precisely your answer. Are you going to respect the resolution and not ship any weapons to Hezbollah, which you support? And on Iran, could you give us any details on your meeting with Italian leader Prodi, and whether you've come to any kind of agreement with the EU3 on timing?
I responded to the first part of your question. We give spiritual...
All right, we've been listening to the Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad for the last couple of minutes here on Fox News as he addresses the press over at the United Nations building here in New York City. The headline coming out of the event so far is that Ahmadinejad says that his country is not hiding anything when it comes to its nuclear technology, and that some countries feel that they can speak for the rest of the world, that he's at a loss for what more he can do to provide guarantees to the rest of the world. Andy Card, former White House Chief of Staff to President Bush, joins us now. Hi there, Andy. I know that you were listening to this speech as well. What struck you as the most important thing that he said?
The lack of transparency. He says that he's not hiding anything from the world, but he's certainly not showing the world everything. And I think that's the cause for concern. So, yes, I think the world is worried about Iran, and they would like to see them be more of a participant with the world's communities as they help to make sure that there isn't an escalation of nuclear threat and danger. And I think that would require much more transparency from the government of Iran. And we'd also like to see more democracy for their people.
He also said earlier in his comments that he's given all documents to the IAEA with regard to inspecting the nuclear sites in Iran. That's not true, is it?
To my understanding, it is not. You know, I'm sure he's whatever documents he's given. I'm sure that's a fact. But I'm not sure that he's given all documents that the IAEA would like to have. I don't think he's also provided access to everything that the IAEA would like to see in his country. And so I don't think there's as much transparency in Iran as there's necessary.
From a political point of view, as you've watched the last couple of days unfold here over at the UN, I mean, have you ever seen anything like it where, especially Ahmadinejad and then the Venezuelan leader Chavez, come to the U.S. soil and speak as they do about the United States?
Well, they're not big leaders. These are leaders who are looking for a big stage, and the UN provides a large stage for them to stand on. But it's really, they're not big leaders, and they don't lead well for their people, and they don't lead well for the world.
But they're big threats, aren't they?
I think Iran is a big threat. I'm not sure that Hugo Chavez is a threat. He's a gnat flying around who is troublesome, but he's not even a pebble in our shoe. Instead, he's a millstone around the neck of the people of Venezuela, who are good people, hardworking. They had a good economy that he has ruined, and he's not providing for them the way they should be, and they are not the example of a great democracy that they once were.
I want to move on now to Hugo Chavez. You were speaking about him, the Venezuelan leader. Just coming into Fox News that the House Minority Leader, Nancy Pelosi, has called him an everyday thug. So at least across Republican and Democratic lines, I think people are in agreement about the terminology that they might use to describe this guy. He's supposed to be showing up in Harlem here any moment to give away cheap heating oil. Apparently, he has now arrived at this event. What do you make of this PR stunt?
Well, I think that it's just a PR stunt. While he has oil, he has not been sharing the revenues of that oil with the people of Venezuela, and their economy is suffering as a result of it. He's just not a good leader, and he is kind of a thug. And the truth is, America doesn't have to worry about Hugo Chavez being a threat to our country. Instead, we should worry about the cancer that he's spreading throughout South America and Latin America.
Yeah, because isn't it true that he is responsible for jacking up the prices of oil for us to begin with, and then he comes to New York and tries to play the game that he's going to sell it to low-income people here at a cheaper price?
Well, he's certainly not playing by the rules of a responsible leader, and he's an embarrassment to the people of Venezuela, and he's an embarrassment to the community of world leadership.
If you were still serving under President Bush, how would you tell him to deal with these two rogue leaders?
Well, I think the president is dealing exactly the right way with both of these leaders. He's calling for more democracy for the people of Iran. He's calling for the hopes and dreams to be realized in that country, a spectacular people in Iran. And they would like to be able to live in freedom and exercise opportunities for economic growth and free debate and have a true democracy. And I also know that they're not a leadership that's part of the world community. The entire world has said to Iran, come clean. Don't develop a nuclear weapon. And I think that the Iranian leadership should respect that. The world is asked very respectfully, and the Iranian leadership should respond to the world and not thumb their nose at the world the way they do.
Do you think that the president would be playing this differently if he were not in the situation in Iraq?
Well, I think it's very important that we are in Iraq and that we help Iraq establish a viable democracy that will allow for that country to be of, by, and for the people of Iraq, something that is desperately important. We also want to make sure that Iraq does not become a haven for terrorists. And so the success in Iraq is critical to the war on terror, and the battlefront in Iraq is part of that war on terror. All right,
Andy, I'm just going to take a quick break here because we are watching live pictures now of Hugo Chavez, the leader of Venezuela, coming to the event at the Mount Olivet Baptist Church here in Harlem, just a couple miles up the road from Fox News headquarters here in the heart of New York City. Dressed in a bright red shirt here, a casual look for today, Hugo Chavez is addressing what appears to be dozens of people who have come to this church today. As Rick Leventhal told us, not just people from New York, people from Alaska, from other states coming to potentially take advantage of the cheap heating oil program that the Venezuelan leader, through his government-owned company Citgo, is providing to the people here. As we've been mentioning this morning, ironically, some might argue that Venezuela has been responsible for jacking up the price of oil in the last year, while at the same time, the president here offering to sell it at a low-cost level to people who are in the low-income brackets. So once again, there was speculation about whether or not Chavez would show up at this event today. Some reports had said that he had left the country last night, but now it appears he has made an appearance here in Harlem. Are we going to go out to Rick Leventhal? Okay, we want to go back to Andy Card now. As we're watching these pictures, sir, what comes to your mind as we're seeing the Venezuelan leader, after he called our president the devil yesterday, seating now in front of people here, listening to cheers, blowing kisses to the audience?
Well, I think that he's a showman, and he's an embarrassment to his people. And what he's doing in Harlem is a great disservice, actually, because markets determine the prices of energy, and leaders should not determine the price of energy. But if he's going to make a contribution to America, we're glad to have that contribution. But I tell you, he should go back and help the people of Venezuela and make sure that the economies of the world have access to oil at a competitive price.
Yeah, what's going to happen, do you think, to Citgo gas stations here in America? I was discussing this in the last hour, and a lot of people don't buy their gas by the brand name. They simply pull up to the closest pump. All the research has shown that. Do you think the American public might be educated now on what's happened at the UN in the last couple of days and actually make a conscious choice to decide where they are going to purchase their gasoline?
Well, I believe the vast majority of people in America are active consumers who go for the best value for their money. And I think that will continue to be the practice. But I do feel that some message to Hugo Chavez should be sent from America, and I think it's actually one of, you're a gnat, you're a bother, you're not worth worrying about. You're hurting your people, and we're going to have a good, strong democracy in this country and a strong economy, and we hope that your people will have a good, strong economy and a good, strong democracy, and you're not providing leadership in either direction.
The U.S. gets 1 million barrels of oil a day from Venezuela. What should the U.S. be doing to try and secure alternative fuel energy supplies?
Well, the President's energy initiatives have been very ambitious about making sure that we have more sources of energy rather than just foreign sources of energy. He's put more money into the exploration for alternative energy sources in the United States, tax incentives for us to take advantage of alternative energy sources. He'd like us to see us move to a greater ethanol economy, and this is something that I think is very important, and it is happening. We're also discovering new energy reserves that are within the continent of the United States and also in the Gulf of Mexico that we can tap. So we are making a lot of progress in terms of reducing our dependence on foreign oil, but much more has to be done, and I hope that our economy will continue to thrive and pay attention to the needs of energy that we have and find alternative sources and ways to conserve energy as well.
All right, former White House Chief of Staff Andy Card, thanks for your thoughts today. I just want to mention the camera was on a shot of Chavez just a few seconds ago while Mr. Card was speaking, and he was holding a young child in his arms. So again, publicity at his best today, trying to make it seem as if he's a hero for everyone here in the U.S. on the heels of what he said yesterday at the UN General Assembly. I want to welcome my colleague now to the New York studio, Bill Hemmer. Hi, Bill.
Hey, Gretchen, good morning to you. They are certainly getting their mileage out of this trip to New York City. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad this hour. He's still in his question-and-answer session back at the UN. Hugo Chavez, north end of the island of Manhattan up in Harlem. We expect to hear from him in a matter of minutes before he gets to the stage there. Let's go to Rick Leventhal, positioned outside there, outside the Baptist Church. Rick, do we expect a speech from him to be more questions, or what's the format?
We believe that there will be remarks made by Mr. Chavez, and we also believe that he may answer questions from the press, but that's not clear. I talked to some advanced people out here earlier and requested an interview. We're not sure whether or not we'll get that. We don't know whether or not he'll actually answer questions, but we do expect him to talk quite a bit inside the church, Bill. And I should tell you that in addition to Chavez supporters here, we also have some opponents as well. There's some protesters over here with signs who've been out here chanting. The signs call Chavez a terrorist, a warmonger, and Fidel's pet, in addition to being a liar. But they were also drowned out earlier by others chanting, Chavez no se va, don't go. So he has a lot of supporters here, and many of them are inside Mount Olivet Baptist Church right now for this presentation of these heating oil contracts to low-income people across the Northeast.
You know, Rick, the one thing we heard yesterday at the UN, we heard laughter rippling throughout the General Assembly. We heard applause at the conclusion of his speech. Already today, we're seeing more applause on the inside and kisses being blown along the way. You mentioned the number of people who turned out there inside. How big is that church?
It's a pretty good-sized church. I mean, it holds several hundred people at least. What we're not seeing a lot of are politicians. There are some local politicians, some representatives from the Bronx and from Harlem, but we haven't seen any recognizable state reps or certainly U.S. congressmen or senators here. There were reports that Joe Kennedy might be here, the son of Robert and Ethel, who is the president of Citizens Energy in Boston, which helps distribute heating oil to low-income families. He was reported to be here by Citgo, which is Venezuela's own oil company, but then Kennedy's people said, in fact, he was not going to be here, and he has not shown up.
House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi calls him an everyday thug. That coming out moments ago. Andrew Carr was just on our air with Gretchen. He says he's an embarrassment to his own people. Is this the last event he has in the U.S.?
I'm sorry, I missed the end
Is this
of that.
the final event for him here, Rick? Does he go home after this?
You know, it's interesting because he did have a press conference scheduled for 2:30 this afternoon, local time, and then that was canceled, and that helped fuel some of the rumors this morning that Chavez had actually left the country last night. As far as we know, this is his last scheduled event, but I can't confirm that.
Okay, Rick, thanks. Rick Leventhal is outside the Baptist Church in Harlem. We're watching the videotape live now from Hugo Chavez entering the room about 5 to 7 minutes ago. This young girl has been sitting on his lap, and now it looks like she's going to be returned back to the audience. We do expect a speech of some sort. When it happens, you'll see it live here on Fox. And we're counting on the translation as we got it yesterday at this time, 24 hours ago, calling the president the devil. And there was wide reaction on both sides of the political aisle down in Washington about this speech from yesterday and the reaction for the U.S. And here at Fox, we're already conducting our own poll. We expect results maybe later today, possibly tomorrow, as to whether or not the U.S. should continue its support monetarily of the United Nations. Hugo Chavez made the comment yesterday that maybe the UN should leave the U.S. Good idea? What do you think? Our polling comes out later. Stay tuned for that, and stay tuned as our coverage continues. See you in a moment here on Fox.
Because Fox is where the news is.
I enjoy great entertainment. That's why I have Comcast Digital Cable. I love the on-demand feature. I can pick a show and play it whenever, and I love my high-def TV.
Comcast is leading the way with 3 great products. Comcast Digital Cable with On Demand, Comcast High-Speed Internet, and now available Comcast Digital Voice. Experience great savings with the triple play from Comcast.
When I want to relax, I want to relax. For me, Comcast is the best choice.
Peace of mind. That's the new 5-year, 100,000-mile Saturn warranty at Northern New Jersey's most convenient Saturn locations in Totowa, Ramsey, and Pompton Plains. Lease a new 2007 Saturn Aura for just $285 a month. That's only $285 a month. The new Saturn Ion, only $164 a month. And see the new Saturn Sky. Drive pure bliss at these Saturn dealers. Saturn, treating people like always, surprising them like never before. Now at 3 convenient Saturn locations in Totowa, Ramsey, and Pompton Plains.
The original hot hatch is back, and DCH Milburn VW has it in the house. The new VW GTI is fast and fun. And here's the best part. DCH Milburn VW will lease you a nicely equipped GTI for like $199 per month. Look for equally good lease deals on the new 30-plus MPG Jetta and the 06 Passat 2. Check out the all-new GTI and all the great VWs at DCH Milburn Volkswagen. DCH Milburn Volkswagen. We've got your fast.
It's time for movies on demand, like having a theater at your command. Hundreds of flicks from A to Z. With Comcast, see them totally free.
Watch them from your couch.
Or in your bed.
And you can eat popcorn out of my head.
Free movies on demand. Anytime you want, no need to plan. Free movies on demand.
Watch hundreds of movies free with On Demand from Comcast Digital Cable.
It's Comcastic.
Welcome back, everyone, to Fox News' coverage of the event here in Harlem in New York City. You're looking at Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez in a bright red shirt today, a casual look after his big day over at the UN yesterday where he blasted America and the Bush administration, calling the president a devil, amongst many other not too nice things. Today, now, he's up in Harlem because he's, publicly at least, being a hero to many low-income residents here in the Northeast. He's giving heating oil at a much reduced cost. He's done this before, and now he's doing it again, and we are awaiting his comments at that live event. In the meantime, I'm going to toss it back over to Bill.
Gretchen, thanks. Oil prices inching up a little bit. What impact is that having on the markets today? Our senior business correspondent, Brenda Butner. Live in New York City, she has the numbers now. Brenda?
That's right. Well, crude prices are edging up, but you might call it more of a recovery after yesterday's loss when oil futures fell more than $1 a barrel, near $60, the lowest level since November of 2005. The thing is, we have plenty of supply, and many analysts see oil sliding all the way down into the 50s. So take that, Hugo Chavez. So the big weapon for the two men who are intent on taking on the U.S., the American haters, the Venezuelan and Iranian presidents, oil may be losing much of its potency. If price goes down, they lose power. Interesting, too, that as President Bush has been called such things as devil, etc., Wall Street hasn't been showing any fear. Not far south of the UN, at the NYSE, the big board has come very close to registering an all-time high for the Dow. Look at that. It's about 9 points closer today. Right now, it is up at 11,623, about 100 points away. And in a half hour, we'll be looking at about how Citgo, those gas stations you see all around the U.S., are owned by Venezuela and by the man who called our president a devil. Back over to you.
Brenda, thank you for that. Brenda Butner here in New York. Meanwhile, up in Harlem, Hugo Chavez about to speak, and we're watching that picture now. And what a contrast it is. Sometimes we split the screen. Hugo Chavez on one side, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad at the other, both in New York City, Gretchen.
Yeah, and you know, Bill, they've been the best of buddies as of late. They met down with Castro in Cuba as well, and that's kind of a scary alliance, the three of them together. But now these two leaders have been in America for the last few days, given the right to speak on the General Assembly floor in front of hundreds of world leaders here, getting applause when yesterday Chavez said that President Bush was the devil. So once again, waiting for his comments here as he addresses people up in Harlem. Bill?
This has told us that we need to continue with our program.
Do you have an adjustable rate mortgage? How much has your monthly payment gone up? Do you have credit card debt? Get a new low fixed rate home loan with one low monthly payment, even if you have a credit problem. Log on or call 1-800-71-FIXED.
Our clients can't work anymore because they're disabled. They're not freeloaders, not by a long shot. If you've paid into the Social Security system all of your working life and now you're disabled, call 1-800-66-BINDER.
Paula Sela is a real Geico customer, not an actor. So to help tell her story, we hired that announcer guy from the movies.
When the storm hit, both our cars were totally underwater.
In a world where both of our cars were totally underwater,
we thought it would take forever to get some help.
but a new wind was about to blow.
With Geico, we had our check in 2 days.
Payback. This time, it's for real.
Geico. Real service, real savings.
For Coach Taylor, football was more than a game. It was a way of life.
We need new leadership.
All he needed was a miracle.
We got the toughest schedule we ever had and less talent than we ever had.
Winning football games is too small a thing to live for.
You can't win football games if you don't play together as a team.
NFL great Dan Reeves exclaims, a great movie. Every family in America should see it. Facing the Giants, rated PG. Coming to theaters September 29th.
Have you made the O part of your morning? Or perhaps part of your game? Maybe an afternoon in. Or an hour in the gym. An elegant evening out. Or a vacation somewhere far away. You'll save on thousands of products at Overstock.com, as well as books, business supplies, auctions, and travel. Make the O part of your life. Overstock.com. It's all about the O.
So that's the last slide, right?
Right. So I'm hitting send?
Yeah. Wait. Who's presenting in Chicago?
McLean.
McLean?
Yeah, he can do it. Right?
Hi.
Let me guess. McLean's on his own in Chicago? Have a good flight.
We know why you fly. We're American Airlines.
Launching Fox Online with the news meets the net. Up first today, President Ahmadinejad yesterday praising suicide bombers, and today lecturing the U.S. on justice. U.S. taxpayers spending $5 million a day to get insulted, and Citgo funneling U.S. dollars to a dangerous dictator. All that coming up this hour. And we start with a man yesterday, now live, who insulted the entire country. Today he's trying to win friends in Harlem with a few thousand gallons of home heating oil. Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, the same guy who accused the U.S. of dominating, exploiting the planet yesterday, now hoping a PR stunt will convince the average American that he's really a good guy after all. Go figure. Rick Leventhal is outside that church up in Harlem. Rick?
No, I'm losing...
Hey, Rick, it's Bill Hemmer. We're live on the air. When will we hear from Chavez? All right, bit of a difficulty there trying to link up with Rick Leventhal here. Stand by for a moment here. We'll try and make that connection here. It was 24 hours ago on this program when Hugo Chavez turned heads from here back to Caracas. And in Washington today, a wide range of reaction. Again, today, Nancy Pelosi calls him an everyday thug. Andrew Card was on our air a few moments ago saying that he's an embarrassment to his people back in Venezuela. Today, the event in Harlem is to try and get lower heating bills and oil at a much lower rate for thousands of people in New York and the state of Massachusetts. That's the event that was billed today. And Hugo Chavez has been sitting there for the past 20 minutes. At one time, he had a little girl on his lap. She has since returned to the audience, and we expect to get a bit, well, we'll get the translation, we'll get the speech, and we might get some questions, too, from the audience as Hugo Chavez sits in that chair up there. Several hundred expected in the audience in the Baptist Church in Harlem. While this is happening, back at the UN, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is making comments with reporters there. He's been asked very pointedly about his nuclear program. He has said in turn, we don't need a nuclear bomb. He was also asked about his comments to destroy Israel and wipe it off the map. He says, I am not anti-Jew, and then went on to explain that he believes the Palestinian people should be able to determine their own fate in the Palestinian territories. Ahmadinejad is still talking back at the UN. And man, when this guy is asked a question, he can go for a very, very long time. His first answer to the first question by my watch went well over 10 minutes. So we're waiting on more comments from him, and we're going to check in on Eric Shawn on that in a moment. Also outside that church in Harlem, Rick Leventhal. Now we've got the signal up and running. Rick, when's he going to take the stage?
Bill, he's sitting up, he's basically on the stage inside the Mount Olivet Baptist Church, and we do expect to hear some words from Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, despite rumors earlier this morning that he had left the country. In fact, he's here. He arrived about 40 minutes late and is inside for this presentation of heating oil contracts to low-income families. Part of the purpose of Chavez's visit here, obviously, he went to the United Nations yesterday, and there was a lot of there's been a lot of reaction to his comments there when he called President Bush the devil and said it still smelled like sulfur at the podium where Mr. Bush had spoken the day before. America, by the way, is Venezuela's #1 customer for oil, buying 1.5 million barrels every single day. So last year, Chavez said that he decided to give some of the profits back, distributing more than 40 million barrels of oil to more than 180,000 households in the Northeast at 40% below market value. And this year, Venezuela is saying that it will double that donation, and that's one of the reasons why Mr. Chavez is inside. We have some supporters of Hugo Chavez outside the church. We also have some protesters as well who have been calling Hugo Chavez a terrorist and a liar. Those folks are gathered over here, and then you have some supporters here as well, Bill. So there's been a lot of back and forth outside the church, and inside you've got some customers who've been getting some of that low-price heating oil, but many of them actually arrived here on a charter bus, presumably brought in for this event by the organizers.
Rick, can you tell the supporters of Chavez gathered there, are they American citizens? Can you tell?
Are you an American citizen?
I absolutely am.
And you're a supporter of Chavez?
Absolutely.
And what do you think about his comments yesterday at the United Nations when he called Mr. Bush, the President Bush, the devil?
Well, I think much more than his comments is if you look at the whole system and the fact that the system is a joke, and that's what President Chavez is alluding to.
Which system is that?
It's the United Nations, it's the international policies that are carried on as if they were really serious business when really they're against the working class, not only in Latin America, but in the United States.
But he was specifically referring to President Bush, calling him the devil.
Well, what do you call somebody that bombs countries innocently?
Well, why would he do business with the devil?
Well, you tell me, why would somebody?
No, I'm asking you, if he calls the president the devil, why would he do business? Why would he sell our country 1.5 million barrels of oil every day?
Unfortunately, maybe because if he doesn't do that, Venezuela will be the next country bombed, as we've witnessed with Iraq and every other country. So.
All right, well, there you have it. There, one woman's opinion, Bill, outside the Mount Olivet Baptist Church here in Harlem.
Not quite sure the incentive there is to take it out on Caracas. Rick, thanks. Nice job. Rick Leventhal in Harlem. Ambassador Martin Indyk is with me as well, too. And as we look at the Iranian president's effort to spread more propaganda against the U.S. and the allies here, the guy whose country sponsors terrorism has ordered kidnappings and murders or jails anyone who does not toe the extremist Muslim line. What are we to make of him and the organization that gave him that huge platform this week? Ambassador Indyk can answer that. Director of the Savant Center for Middle East Policy, Brookings Institution. Welcome here.
Thanks, Bill.
What was his mission in New York City?
Well, I think we see the variety of meetings that he held here, public meetings, meetings with the Council on Foreign Relations and so on, interviews that he did with television as well, were all part, I think, of a campaign on his part with two purposes in mind. First, I think probably foremost, was to show his own people what a hero he is, standing up to the United States in New York, in a way that they can relate to, standing up for the dignity, as it were, of all those that he claims the United States is oppressing. And that's his second purpose. It's really using the platform here to send a message back home and to the wider Islamic world, to the Arab world, and to the non-aligned world that standing up to the United States is this guy, this hero, Ahmadinejad.
When Ahmadinejad stands side by side with Hugo Chavez, it's my sense that they empower one another. Did they get that done here in New York City, if that was their intent?
Well, I think we have to judge it. Certainly, they didn't get their message across here to the majority of American peoples, but I think back home is where we have to judge how this goes down, and I suspect it goes down quite well. And one of the interesting things, Bill, is the way in which Ahmadinejad, the president of Iran, has become a popular, almost a folk hero in the Arab world, which is predominantly Sunni, not Shia, and certainly is not Persian, and there's an age-old antagonism there. Yet by standing up to the United States and to Israel, he generates this kind of reaction there, and that's very helpful to him internally, where he is gaining power because of his popularity, outflanking those who actually are higher up in the political hierarchy. Even the Supreme Leader himself, I suspect, is somewhat outflanked by this guy because of his populist tactics. These are the same tactics that Hugo Chavez is also pursuing here, and what it is a kind of throwback to the days of Gamal Abdel Nasser and Sukarno.
You know, Mr. Ambassador, if oil's not above $60 a barrel, are they still puffing their chest out the way they are now?
Well, as long as they can use the United States, we present a very big target for them, and I don't think it matters what the price of oil is. In Iran's case in particular, Bill, you've got a situation where, because, ironically, we took out their greatest adversary, we took care of Saddam Hussein, and Iraq has now become such a quagmire for the United States. Iran, they don't have to do anything to make themselves more dominant in that part of the world that is so sensitive politically and in terms of oil as well. So in a sense, he's getting a free ride on the troubles that we have in Iraq.
That was actor Danny Glover there, arm in arm with Hugo Chavez while you were talking, Mr. Ambassador. Take your point just a step further. If Hugo Chavez calls the president the devil yesterday and rails against all the imperialistic qualities of the U.S. in his words from yesterday, what does he say today?
He probably just repeat it, but I think the audience is a little different. The UN General Assembly, with, in a sense, the whole world watching, was a perfect platform for the kind of antics that he got up to there. And I suspect that he'll put on a kinder, gentler face today because of the audience that he's addressing.
We shall soon see. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Martin Indyk from our newsroom here in New York City. And we're going to keep this picture up for a moment. Hugo Chavez has been in that room now for about 30 minutes by my watch. In the meantime, I want to recap now with the president of Venezuela there coming here to the U.S., criticizing the president, insulting the country and the policies of the U.S. For those who do not know it, though, Citgo gas, popular here in the U.S., is owned by a company back in Venezuela. Every time for Americans to say no to Citgo. Brenda Butner is looking at that story. She's in our newsroom as well. Brenda?
Yes, well, you may not know by looking at Citgo stations that when you pull up to the pump, the money you spend there is money you send straight back to Venezuela, its state, and its leader, Hugo Chavez, the very man who publicly calls our president a devil. Yes, Citgo is the U.S. subsidiary of PDVSA. That's the Venezuelan state-owned petroleum company. And it's not small. It has 14,000 retail gas outlets only here in the U.S. But you know what? Hugo Chavez may talk a good game, yet he needs us more than we need him. Yes, he produces 3.3 million barrels of oil each day, and about a third of that goes to us. But a full third of the Venezuelan GDP is fueled by oil alone. Now, the stock markets certainly aren't responding to any of his dramatics. The Dow still near its all-time high. The NASDAQ down just a point, and the S&P down just a point as well. They certainly aren't listening to any of this bullying. But the main thing to watch are the oil markets. And what's surprising about all that is they are creeping up just pennies today. But how they have fallen in the last few weeks since all of this has been going on. They've gone from $78.40, that's a high in July, to near $60 a barrel yesterday. Not even name calling can raise those prices, and those prices are basically the only weapon that Hugo Chavez has besides oil. So I think that's very, very interesting, and it may be interesting as you pull up to Citgo to know exactly where your money is going the next time you put that pump into your car.
Thank you, Brenda. Good day. Brenda Butner here in our newsroom. Danny Glover at the podium. I want to listen to just drop in here and see what type of message he's carrying today. That's the translation going out in Spanish. You can hear the English in the background. If we can bring up that other microphone, we'll try it again. Okay, we're not able to do that, though. But one of the arguments that Hugo Chavez has been trying to present while he's here in New York is to get a seat on the UN Security Council, which would give his country and him a powerful stage, too, in which to criticize the U.S. as he did much of yesterday. The devil himself is what he referred to the president yesterday, a world dictator, the words from yesterday. The devil himself is here in the House. The devil came here yesterday, referring to the president on Tuesday at the UN, right here, and it smells of sulfur still today. That was part of his speech from yesterday. Those remarks prompted a quick rebuke from one of Chavez's closest friends in Congress. That's a U.S. representative from Massachusetts, William Delahunt. He's a Democrat. He called Chavez's comments silly and inappropriate. This had been a congressman who supported this oil program that you're going to hear about today in Harlem. The reason for this trip to this Baptist church is to try and provide thousands with cheaper heating oil come the winter months here. They helped thousands in New York and Massachusetts last year. And as Andrew Card said last hour, fine, we'll take the program, but you just don't want the comments and the policies that Hugo Chavez is supporting. We hope to have a translator through his comments here. If you were with us yesterday, Eric Sean got an impromptu one-on-one interview with Hugo Chavez, and 90% of that interview was done in Spanish with a translator nearby, just a little bit of English spoken by the Venezuelan president, elected by the people of his country, now on the stage in New York City again today.
I wanted to express my special love to all the men and the women of this community in Harlem, to our Aboriginal brothers from Alaska, who came from such a far distance. As was telling me the leader, Jan Ehrlich, that they traveled 14 hours, something like that, to be able to arrive here. So that it deserves a special recognition for our Aboriginal brothers from Alaska. No. Oh, yeah. Honorable Dr. Charles Curtis, Reverend of this church, Mount Olivet, of the Mounts of the Olives. I would like to give my greeting to all the brothers and sisters of this community, of this religious community. And, of course, The name of this church is so revealing, so meaningful for us, the Christians. The Mount of the Olives. We should invocate Christ, our Redemptor, so he would accompany us from now and ever to build a new society for peace. For peace. Christ, the martyr, Christ, eternal, Christ, the Redemptor. From the Mount of the Olives to our heart, Christ, Redemptor, resuscitated. Honorable Cornel West, Professor of Religious Studies of the University of Princeton, is honoring us with his presence. Honorable friend, academician, it's very important to read what these people write, the reflections they bring to us, to fill with light and ideas our minds regarding what is happening today in the United States, in our American continent, and in the world. And I thank very much the words of Dr. Charles Curtis, his welcoming words. I'm very grateful that he presented us with so much love in this community of Harlem. I thank very much the wise words of this young indigenous leader, Jan Ehrlich, who gave us a bath of knowledge. He's a leader, and he's so young. He's a leader of a community, of the tribe of... I lost my feet. Stop. Yeah, feet's gone. I am giving him a welcome, fervorous welcome from my part. And I would like to remind you, speaking with our indigenous people, with our brothers, and with our Aborigines, that those are the original tribes of this continent. They are the real owners of this land. Is something tremendous to recognize this. Those are the original inhabitants who were massacred by the British colonialism, by the Spanish colonialism, by the Portuguese colonialism, Dutch, French, the whole of Europe. Europe came to America and devastated it in a genocide. And it's the biggest in history, and nobody wants to talk about it. But we were massacred. Tribes were massacred. They were massacred and expoliated. We have to remember that always. Without any type of hatred, it's just the truth. And the truth can revindicate us with ourselves. But our European brothers now, and I want to remember this, that the development of Europe started with the massacre of Latin America. And not only of America, the development of Europe, the industrialization, and the enrichment happened not only over the massacre of America, but also Black Africa. The black African. And today, we are here, 500 years later after that massacre. We are here. You are the survivors of the massacre. You, the Aborigines of America. We, the mestizos, a mixture between the original American Indians and the blacks from Africa. That is us, the mestizos from this world. The America of the mestizos. Us, since we are not racist, we also accept the whites here. And we love them anyway because we are the same human beings. White, the mestizos, we are the children of God. And that should be the sense and the strength that we have for now. And that should move us now in these years in our struggle. Equality. Equality. As Jesus said, love each other. We should live as
Hugo Chavez in Harlem, his speaking again directed toward his audience there and toward a wider audience across the country here and back to his home country in Venezuela, a day after that speech on the floor of the United Nations that continues to get all kinds of reaction. John Bolton's the UN ambassador from the U.S. He called it a comic strip approach to international affairs. Condoleezza Rice called the comments not becoming for a head of state. Charles Rangel weighed in a few moments ago, too. His words after the break here.
This program is brought to you by 21st Century Insurance. You could save hundreds on auto insurance at 21st.com.
No matter what kind of car you drive, there's a really good chance you're paying more than you should for auto insurance. Want to find out for sure? Call 21st at 1-800-980-5817. Our new customers save an average of $300. Call 1-800-980-5817. In just a few minutes, you'll know how much you can save. It's fast, easy, and free.
21st Century Insurance. Call us now at 1-800-980-5817.
Binder & Binder is America's most successful Social Security disability advocates. So if you're disabled, call 1-800-66-BINDER because success and a little comfort should be part of your America, too.
For years, E-Trade stood outside, throwing stones at the financial establishment. Now that we've matured and offer everything from trading to banking, we're doing it from inside. Be extraordinary at etrade.com.
If you love power, you'll love a Panasonic vacuum with power on demand. This exclusive feature automatically gives you more power just when you need it. In fact, your Panasonic vacuum might just become your new best friend. Panasonic. Ideas for life.
While other airlines are taking things away, Continental still offers things like pillows, blankets, and meals at mealtime. In other words, everything you should expect from an airline. Continental Airlines. Work hard, fly right.
All right, clicking on the UN again today, where Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is being treated like royalty in some corners. He just met with reporters a short time ago, the same guy who yesterday told a reporter from NBC that the practice of suicide bombers is, quote, not a bad thing. Eric Shawn's our senior correspondent of the UN, joining us live right now. Eric, he asked a question, don't know if he got an answer, though. just about 30 minutes ago. Did he answer your question about trust?
Yeah, he absolutely did answer a question. You know, the president of Iran said, we do not need the bomb. He said that Iran doesn't have any need for a nuclear bomb. That basically echoes what he's been saying of the past several weeks, and certainly in some of his interviews and publicly here. He does continue to defend Iran's right to develop nuclear technology.
Eric, I apologize. Fox News alert Charles Rangel, his reaction to Chavez's speech yesterday.
On each other. They can do politically what they see fit to do, but you don't come into my country, you don't come into my congressional district, and you don't condemn my president. If there's any criticism of President Bush, it should be restricted to Americans, whether they voted for him or not. And I just want to make it abundantly clear to Hugo Chavez or any other president, don't come to the United States and think because we have problems with our president, that any foreigner can come to our country and not think that Americans do not feel offended when you offend our chief of state. Are there any questions? I've said it all. Yes?
You talked about the value of these oil programs. Is Chavez jeopardizing cooperation with the U.S. on these programs? Should they continue if he continues to criticize the president? Is it appropriate for the U.S. to allow these programs to continue given his criticism?
As long as our government and our business people are buying millions of dollars of oil from Venezuela, I see no reason why we should not be appreciative in accepting the generosity of the Venezuelan government. I'll be glad to take a follow-through, but we are consistent with American policy. Was there another question?
George Bush is the President of the United States, says Charles Rangel, represents the entire country. Any demeaning public attack against him is viewed by Republicans and Democrats and all Americans as an attack on all of us. Hugo Chavez screen right there in Harlem. That's the House gathering there down there in Capitol Hill. Eric Shawn, meanwhile, we cut him off. Eric, my apologies for that, but we just wanted to pick up on Charles Rangel's comments. You were talking about the question about trust that you put to Mahmoud Ahmadinejad last hour live here on Fox. Your answer was what?
Yeah, well, you know, the Iranians have been saying that they don't have any need for a nuclear bomb, but there's been a history of Iranian deception on this. They block UN inspectors. The IAEA, the International Energy Agency, says there are still a lot of questions, and they cannot confirm that Iran certainly does not have, other than peaceful intentions in what they say, is nuclear technology only for electricity. So I asked him what I thought was the heart of the matter of what's going on here at the United Nations on the world stage. Here's the answer, considering the history of Iranian nuclear deception. For 18 years, a country hid its nuclear program until it was revealed by a dissident. The IAEA says there are still many questions left with your nuclear program. Mr. President, why should anyone trust what you say?
We have not hidden anything. We are working transparently. We are working within the framework of the NPT. And according to NPT provisions, every country has the right to enjoy the fuel cycle.
He also talked about the issue of nuclear bombs, saying it's ideas that will basically sway political aspects. Here's his answer to that.
The bottom line is we do not need a bomb, unlike what others think. Regretfully, some believe that the nuclear bomb can be effective in international relations. They're wrong, because the time for nuclear bombs has ended.
Well, they also would not say if he would not continue to support Hezbollah. And as far as wiping out Israel, he kind of danced around that question that did say he's anti-Zionist, but said the president of Iran, in his words, he is not, quote, anti-Jew. Back to you.
It's been one interesting week. Thanks, Eric. Eric Shawn at the UN. It is on the internet, your TV, everywhere you look today. You just heard the comments from Congressman Rangel. The Venezuelan president yesterday ripping President Bush, calling him a devil, accusing the U.S. of trying to rule the world, all while standing on U.S. soil. The UN audience reacting yesterday, not with anger, as you might expect, but rather this way. Listen.
Sulfur here, but God is with us, and I embrace you all. May God bless us all. Good day to you.
Applause in the audience. That response prompting a New York Post editorial today in which the question is asked, why should Americans cough up $1.3 billion a year to fund a forum for anti-American leftist kooks like Chavez or an unhinged suspected terrorist from the '79 Iranian hostage crisis like Ahmadinejad? I'm going to talk about that with Jack Quinn, former White House counsel for the Clinton administration and former New York Senator and Fox News contributor Alphonse D'Amato with me as well. Jack Quinn, jump in on here. I mean, everybody's coming out of the woodwork so far. We heard from John Bolton yesterday and Condoleezza Rice. Now Charles Rangel's in on the Act 2 down in Washington. Why should Americans stand for this, or should they?
Well, I don't think Americans do stand for this. Everyone's offended. I think Senator D'Amato and I would agree wholeheartedly on that. You know, Hugo Chavez's remarks were really appalling and totally out of bounds. He's not welcome to make remarks like that. He's not welcome to make personal attacks against the President of the United States. And quite frankly, I think at the end of the day, the tone and tenor of his remarks, they really debase him and the Venezuelan people, not President Bush, the United States government, or the American people. They're most unfortunate, most unwelcome, and I think all of us resent them enormously.
Yeah, even though it may be hurtful and insulting to many, and publicly I expect the dribble and the long line of people to continue to come out, Senator, but is there any recourse you can take against Hugo Chavez?
I don't think you don't have to. I think Charlie Rangel said it all, and here is a Democrat, an activist, a partisan Democrat, but he rose to defend this country and the president and the kind of decorum that we expect. It's one thing to criticize, it's another thing to attack in a wild manner, demonizing the leader of this nation. So I think Charlie spoke for all Democrats, all Americans. Jack did. Even President Clinton, former President Clinton, spoke up. If anything, I think politically it comes out as a terrible loss to Chavez, and again in terms of people who may disagree with our president and his policies, but who are supportive of the position of President of the United States.
Does it give those in this country, Jack Quinn, who feel that the amount of money the U.S. pays to the UN every year is not worth the price?
I hope not. Look, the United Nations is an important and appropriate forum within which we try to rally the world community in common cause when the need arises around the world. It would be most unfortunate if this incident undermined the standing of the UN. I understand it has problems. I understand it needs further reform. This government and governments before this administration have worked hard to try to bring reform to the United Nations. That's what we should do. We shouldn't walk away from it because, remember, it has been the body that from time to time has stood behind the United States in pursuing appropriate objectives around the world.
Senator, I have 10 seconds. You want to jump in on that? What about this $1.3 billion a year?
The UN had better begin to get its house in order. I agree with Jack. We don't want to just dump it, but we have to let them know that we're not going to permit business as usual. The kind of corruption that has existed, the kind of mindless ganging up on the United States, that's the kind of thing we've got to try to get them to change, because if they don't, then they're going to lose the U.S. support, and that would be unfortunate.
Thank you, Senator. Jack Quinn, thanks to you as well.
Thank you.
Back up to Harlem here on the island of Manhattan. Hugo Chavez still speaking there. We dropped in a short time ago. This a day after the speech rattled the United Nations and rattling now politicians on both sides of the aisle. Back in a moment. More reaction to what's being said today after this on Fox Online.
Train introduces the first central air system that removes up to 99.98% of the allergens from all the air that it heats or cools. Train Clean Effects. See how it works at train.com.
Take it back, Sophia. I said, take it back.
Never take it back, Marcello.
Now you can take it back with Burlington Coat Factory's new cashback policy, but chances are you won't want to. Burlington Coat Factory's new cashback policy.
Lance Armstrong is not a cyclist.
He is a leader. He uses all that he has accomplished to lead an army of cancer survivors and to give hope to everyone fighting the disease everywhere. What do you hope to accomplish? Your goals are our goals. American Century Investments. Invest in what matters.
If you're like me, you've got stuff to sell on eBay, but no time to do it. That's why I started I Sold It, the easy way to sell on eBay. You get a free eBay appraisal, and there's no charge if it doesn't sell. We photograph it, list on eBay, pack and ship. You just cash the check. No wonder I Sold It is the #1 seller on eBay. I sold it.
I Sold It. Drop off your stuff. We'll sell it on eBay. For a store near you, call 877-I-SOLD-IT. Toll free 877-I-SOLD-IT. Franchises available.
He's 50 and at risk. She's 50 and at risk. Doctors know if you're over 50 with other risk factors, you're already at greater risk of a heart attack. Ask your doctor how aspirin can reduce your risk. Bayer can help prevent 1 in 3 heart attacks. Only Bayer has low-dose 81 milligram and Bayer Women's Aspirin Plus Calcium. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. She reduced her risk with Bayer. Bayer, working wonders every day. Also from Bayer, try Bayer Back and Body to rush relief right to the site of your pain.
With other online services, I kind of felt like I had to market myself. And with eHarmony, I could just be myself.
You don't have to do a lot of the heavy lifting.
And the key to that is the profile. Dating sites give you a picture and a paragraph. At eHarmony, we do the matching for you based on who you are at the deepest levels. Just does work. I'm not sure how it works, as long as it does.
She loves me for who I am. Okay, where have you been all my life? You know, how come I didn't meet you earlier?
Get matched based on who you really are. eHarmony.com. Log on today.
This is Hugo Chavez still on the stage there in Harlem. Charles Rangel, representative from New York. Harlem is part of Charlie Rangel's district, and 10 minutes ago we heard him come to the microphone there in the House Gallery in Washington, talk about how he was frankly disgusted in the speech yesterday and feels insulted, whether Democratic or Republican, about the comments that Chavez made toward the U.S. president and toward the United States of America this time yesterday. In a moment, we're going to take you back to those comments from Charlie Rangel. So stay tuned for that here as Fox Online continues now. Time for a quick look at our Click Picks, the most popular stories on the Fox News website. #1 is this E. coli scare. Health officials searching a farm out in California trying to find the source for that outbreak. An outbreak that stretched across the country. #2 is the former Enron CEO Jeff Skilling, ticketed for public intoxication. Set for a sentencing in October in the Enron matter, faces 20 to 30 years behind bars. And #3 right now, and again, this story gets so much attention online. Anna Nicole Smith's son, Daniel, age 20, dying in that hospital room. The Bahamas trying to figure out whether or not she received special treatment if there is an investigation on the way. That is what is most popular on our website right now, and some other headlines right now making news at foxnews.com.
Closing in on the source of tainted spinach. Hello, everyone. I'm Uma Pemaraju. Investigators are saying that they found a clue that they're describing as the smoking gun in the spinach E. coli outbreak. A bag of tainted spinach left in a refrigerator has helped narrow that search to 9 California farms in Monterey, San Benito, and Santa Clara counties. So far, though, 146 people in 23 states have become ill from tainted spinach. One person has died. Spinach industry trade groups are planning a news conference later today in Salinas, California. British billionaire Richard Branson pledging to a fortune to fight global warming at the second day of the Clinton Global Initiative hosted by the former president. Mr. Branson is pledging $3 billion over the next 10 years.
We must not be the generation responsible for irreversibly damaging the environment. We must hand it over to our children in as near pristine a condition as we were lent it from our parents.
Walmart answering critics of its employee health care coverage with a new program to be tested at its stores in Florida. The retail giant saying it will sell almost 300 generic prescription drugs to its employees and customers at deep discounts. The medications will be priced at $4 per prescription for up to a 30-day supply. 6th grade students at a Brooklyn, New York school getting a lesson on how to pack light. The American Occupational Therapy Association is saying about 7,000 children are injured each year by those heavy backpacks and book bags. The event was developed to educate children, parents, and teachers about the potential health risks from carrying those heavy backpacks. And those are some of the stories that Fox is following at this hour. I'm Uma Pemaraju.
Uma, thank you. 3 wildfires in California moving closer to populated areas now, and the firefighters worry that hot, dry Santa Ana winds could cause those flames to grow. Those fires now burning in Los Padres National Forest, 95,000 acres destroyed so far. And that fire starting just about 2.5 weeks ago. I have to go back to Labor Day for the beginning of that. Streaming online right now, Wired Weather, Janice Dean has more now. Hey, JD.
Hi there, Bill. Taking a look at the radar right now, we do have a winter-like storm pushing across the plains. And as you can see, folks across California and the Great Basin not getting in on any of this wet weather. So that's going to be the danger for wildfires. And as Bill mentioned, we've got those Santa Ana winds that are supposed to kick up tomorrow. So we will continue to watch that situation. But man, we're not even through with summer yet. We've got fall just around the corner. But this is a very winter-like storm. It's got a cold side of it where we've got winter storm watches and blowing snow watches for Colorado and the Wasatch of Utah. And then the warm side of this storm could give us the potential for severe weather. So as you can see on the radar, eastern Colorado through Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, all through Iowa, we could see the potential for some very gusty winds, some hail, and even isolated tornadoes. So there is our risk area, pretty much through the Ozarks. And for Dallas, Wichita, Little Rock, you are in this area of higher risk as we head throughout the afternoon and into the evening. And we're going to talk about the tropics. Still got Helene out there. Helene's not going to affect any land, which is good news. But we also have a wave just off the Cape Verde Islands that could present a problem in the days ahead. We do think that it does have the potential to become a depression in the next 24 to 48 hours. Here is Helene, and as I mentioned, there's Bermuda, and of course there's the east coast of the United States, and this is going right out to sea. That trough that is giving us beautiful, beautiful conditions here in the eastern half of the country has pushed off, and that's what's steering the storm right out to sea. So that's good news. We will continue to watch that wave just off the coast of Africa. Our next name on the list, Isaac. All right, I'm Janice Dean. That's your Foxcast.
Look out for I. Thanks, JD.
You bet.
Back to Hugo Chavez right now. There's been a lot of criticism leveled against Citgo, the company here that sells gasoline at 13,000 retail outlets. I'm getting emails from people associated with the company right now, and they are telling me that all of these retail outlets are owned by the company, each independently owned and operated. They're saying that the money made by these U.S. businessmen and women remains in the communities where they do business and does not go back to Venezuela. That a statement from some folks working at Citgo. In the meantime, Charlie Rangel on the Hill moments ago. He represents this district of Harlem where Hugo Chavez is speaking now.
Thank you. As most of you know, the president of Venezuela, as we talk, is in my congressional district in one of our more popular Baptist churches. And it is my understanding that he's there to announce an increase in the amount of heating oil that his country, through an oil company that they control called Citgo, is prepared to give to low-income poor people in my congressional district. It was a very effective program last year and this year, but because they have broadened the base to include a lot of projects that have been considered low income by the federal government, we expect that next year we'll be even getting a larger amount of home heating oil. And so we're deeply appreciative to the Venezuelan government. And this is so because we buy millions of barrels a day, the United States, and it just seems to me that those that supply us that are sensitive to the higher price and inability of the poor to meet it, that the United States oil firms ought to take a page from the Venezuelan book and do the same thing. Having said that, I want President Chavez to please understand that even though many people in the United States are critical of our president, that we resent the fact that he would come to the United States and criticize President Bush. He has to understand that while we have problems politically sometimes with President Bush, that he is still our president, and that we resent foreigners coming and condemning our president, whether it's at the United Nations or whether it's in my congressional district. And even though I am fully aware that he and President Bush enjoy these personal attacks on each other, they can do politically what they see fit to do. But you don't come into my country, you don't come into my congressional district, and you don't condemn my president. If there's any criticism of President Bush, it should be restricted to Americans, whether they voted for him or not. And I just want to make it abundantly clear to Hugo Chavez or any other president, don't come to the United States and think, because we have problems with our president, that any foreigner can come to our country and not think that Americans do not feel offended when you offend our chief of state. Are there any questions?
There they are in total. Charles Rangel, we heard some of those comments live 15 minutes ago. Wanted to play the whole statement back to you. Add Charles Rangel now to the list of John Bolton and Condoleezza Rice and Nancy Pelosi and Andrew Card, and the list goes on. In fact, it's growing by the hour. Hugo Chavez still speaking in Harlem, New York City.
Yesterday I got together with...
Ditech.com can save you thousands of dollars in closing costs.
With our previous refinances, we ended up paying a lot in closing costs. This time, we went to Ditech, and it was only $395.
Log on or call 1-800-71-FIXED.
Hey, my name is Taco, and this is my story. I build custom motorcycles. I'm working every day, leaning over, doing something. When I wake up in the morning, I'd feel joint pain, and I'd feel my hands cramping up. I just had to do something about it. I take a leave, and basically, I make it through the day. I leave, it makes a huge difference.
Because financial solutions have no borders or boundaries, UBS operates in only 2 locations. Everywhere. And right next to you. You and us. UBS.
That's me, Joanne. And it's my 7th day with Prilosec OTC. When my friend Becky said, let's follow the Big and Rich tour, I thought, not with my frequent heartburn. Then I got Prilosec OTC. Now 5 cities in 7 days. Day 2, Cedar City. Day 4, Flagstaff. Tonight, Albuquerque. 0 heartburn for 24 hours with 1 pill a day. That's my Prilosec OTC. It's day 7 for me. What day are you on?
In a world where you often sacrifice great taste for convenience, a new hero will emerge with the power to bring you the best of both. Introducing Bird's Eye Steam Fresh. From freezer to microwave, the revolutionary bag steams your vegetables to crisp, tasty perfection every time. Perfect color, texture, and taste are at a store near you. And now, discover new Steam Fresh specially seasoned. Perfect seasoning is in the bag.
We are plugged in all week to what's happening at the UN. Steve writes the following. I noted in the Hugo Chavez speech at the UN that there were many empty seats. Besides the U.S. delegation, how many other delegations did not choose to listen to this rant from this man? Steve, we went back to the videotape, and it's not entirely clear from this angle, but some empty seats down here, a few down here in the lower left, a few over here and behind that as well. Over in the middle, we see 3 empty seats in this row here, and then a few others dotting up and back and forth for the UN General Assembly. In all, it looks to me about 50-50. Eric Shawn knows better. He's back at his post at the UN. How many did attend, Eric?
Well, Bill, you about called it correctly. There hasn't been a consensus on either Hugo Chavez. There were fewer people, though, in the room for Ahmadinejad, the Iranian president, when he spoke. The reason for that was that Ahmadinejad didn't get on until about 7:30 at night the other night. And, you know, you got a lot of cocktail parties, you've got receptions, you've got these fancy dinners, so some of these diplomats just decide to skip the session. But there's another reason not to have a diplomat at your table behind the sign representing your country. That is the symbolic protest of the U.S. policy, they say, is not to boycott speakers, but the U.S. seats were empty for Ahmadinejad and also for Chavez, the U.S. mission just keeps a, quote, low-level note-taker behind the United States sign to take notes, but that is certainly a symbolic way to issue your opposition and displeasure at what a speaker says. Last year, John Negroponte, when he was the ambassador, he walked out when Ahmadinejad was about to speak, and this summer, during the debate over Lebanon, the Israeli ambassador walked out when Syria started to speak. So basically, the way you can protest a speaker here is to stage the infamous walkout and just turn your back on them. That's seen as an insult, but also something that's very symbolic, that you are in opposition and don't agree with whoever the speaker is, or what they're saying.
Note taker certainly was lonely, Eric. We put a shot up while you were talking. The only one sitting in those seats yesterday for Chavez.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is because so many heads of state and foreign ministers speak, just because someone may not be there doesn't mean they agree or disagree. Literally, because of the receptions and dinners, I think some people decided to skip out on Ahmadinejad the other night because they had dinners. Jacques Chirac went off to Morton's, the steakhouse, we understand. One reason is that U.S. steaks had been banned in France because of mad cow disease. So although they got serious things going on here, they also got all those dinners and parties they may not want to miss.
You know it all, man. Thanks, Eric. Eric Shawn at the UN. Want to get plugged in? Send us an email about the news of the day. Need your full name. We need your hometown to pluggedin@foxnews.com. In the meantime, back up to Harlem, it is live again, and he's still talking, Hugo Chavez. Back in a moment with a look at some of the U.S. politicians who have been cozy with the Venezuelan leader. Will they now back away, or will they pay a political price? Back in a moment.
Traveled the world. What gets us to go around?
We report.
We report.
We report.
And you decide.
Spa, New Jersey. The Spa Pool and Patio Show is coming this weekend. An event so massive it's being held at the New Jersey Convention Center at the Raritan Center. If you're in the market for a new hot tub, this is the place to be. This weekend only. 15 major manufacturers under one roof competing for your business. If you've ever dreamed of owning your own spa, you can't afford to miss this sale. Pricing has never been this low and may never be again. 7-foot spas as low as $29.99. 12 months interest-free financing to qualified buyers. It's the Spa Pool and Patio Show this weekend. The New Jersey Convention Center at the Raritan Center. Friday 3 to 9, Saturday 9 to 9, Sunday 10 to 6. For more details, call 1-800-SPA-SALE. That's 1-800-SPA-SALE.
For the last 10 seasons, you've seen it coming. But he hasn't.
Oh my God, they killed Kenny.
Celebrate Kenny's death with the South Park 10 Kilkenny Sweepstakes, where you can win a trip to Kilkenny, Ireland to see a comedy festival where you'll laugh so hard you'll... To enter, log on to the fan on Comcast.net and view clips of the most piercing, rat-infested final moments of Kenny's lives. Vote online for your favorite and you could win.
Hooray!
And don't miss new episodes of South Park premiering October 4th on Comedy Central.
He's dead, Harmon.
Pass the pea!
Here you go.
Thank you!
How was your day, honey? Excellent!
Live life in the fast lane. Get Comcast high-speed internet for $33 a month for 1 year when you also subscribe to digital cable and Comcast digital voice. At ridiculously quick speeds, it's way faster than DSL and dial-up. Just call 1-888-COMCAST. Comcast high-speed internet. It's Comcastic.
Audi makes an award-winning lineup, including the all-new A4 Quattro and the Audi A6. DCH Milburn Audi on Milburn Avenue is the place to buy and service your new Audi. In addition to great prices on the Audi A4 and the Audi A6, DCH Milburn Audi has a huge inventory of pre-owned Audis to choose from. Test drive your favorite Audi this week at DCH Milburn Audi on Milburn Avenue, minutes from the Short Hills Mall.
House Minority Leader Democrat Nancy Pelosi calling Hugo Chavez an everyday thug, despite what she says is his ability to appear as a modern-day Simon Bolivar. Some politicians have been cozy with Chavez in the past, but after this wave of avalanche of criticism, will they now reconsider? Peter Canellis, Washington Bureau Chief and Deputy Managing Editor for the Boston Globe, can talk about that. Peter, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Bill.
William Delahunt's a representative from Massachusetts. He has sided with Chavez in the past. Is he going to pay a price for this relationship?
Well, certainly his Republican opponent is already trying to make it a major campaign issue, and I believe he's going to have a press conference a little later this week. So it's conceivable that Delahunt will. On the other hand, it's a very Democratic district that Delahunt represents, and he's a 5-term incumbent. So I don't think the conventional wisdom is that he's in political danger.
I'm reading comments from him calling it silly and inappropriate already. Is he saving himself?
He did. Yes, that's in our paper. Yeah, he said that yesterday. He called Chavez's remarks silly and inappropriate. As you know, Delahunt is also, one of the architects of the low-cost heating oil deal. So he's had quite a few dealings with Hugo Chavez.
Well, Peter, I know that event was in New York City today. Why would he not choose to show up there if he was such a supporter?
Well, he probably would if it were Massachusetts, although it's conceivable that he also was reacting to the remarks yesterday. Certainly no congressman today wants to be heavily associated with Hugo Chavez.
Yeah, there is a very famous sign in Boston, Massachusetts, just outside left field at Fenway Park, and every Bostonian knows it. It's the Citgo sign.
Yes.
Are you hearing feedback or backlash already against that company?
Well, there's backlash against the Venezuelan government and the fact of the Venezuelan government owning Citgo. The Citgo sign, I believe, is a national landmark and is considered sort of a part of Boston lore and culture more than an advertisement for Citgo. So I'd be surprised if a lot of people in Boston rose up against the sign.
Yeah, well, I wonder what they're going to rise up against Chavez. The Citgo people are emailing me already saying that the men and women who run those stations, they're privately owned and operated, and all the money they make stays here. Do you know that to be a fact?
I don't know what the arrangement is. I mean, I certainly know that there are American owners. I don't know how much money goes back to Venezuela or what the situation is. I mean, obviously Chavez, as he's speaking now in Harlem, and as he has in Boston, he's brought a lot of low-cost heating oil, and thousands of people have taken advantage of it.
Peter, thank you. Peter Canellis from the Boston Globe. Thanks for coming in today. We'll watch the fallout if there is more. If you care to read what Hugo Chavez thinks about the U.S., we posted the entire transcript of that speech at our website, foxnews.com. And you can also read the New York Post op-ed response, too, at foxnews.com. It was fiery. It's online right now. And this man, too, is fiery again today. Up in Harlem, Hugo Chavez still at the podium. Man likes to talk. Back in a moment.
Back then, we know there were no planes, there was no internet, no telephone, but nothing.
Meet Kate and Edward Lipkins, investors.
I'm a math teacher.
I teach French.
And we weren't keeping on top of our investments.
No, we had a broker, but
he always recommended stuff from his company.
So now we invest on our own.
And I've picked some good investments.
We've picked.
TD Ameritrade offers stocks, bonds, and mutual funds from third-party companies and independent ratings and research to help you choose.
Independence is the spirit that drives America's most successful investors.
The air in the average American home is 2 to 5 times more polluted than the air outside.
Romeo, give me my CD.
But now, Train introduces the first central air system that removes up to 99.98% of the allergens from all the air that it heats or cools. Train Clean Effects. Isn't it time you expected more from your system? Get up to a $1,000 rebate when you purchase a qualifying Train system. Ask your participating independent Train dealer for details. It's hard to stop a train.
He's 50 and at risk. She's 50 and at risk. Doctors know if you're over 50 with other risk factors, you're already at greater risk of a heart attack. Ask your doctor how aspirin can reduce your risk. Bayer can help prevent 1 in 3 heart attacks. Only Bayer has low-dose 81 milligram and Bayer Women's Aspirin Plus Calcium. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. She reduced her risk with Bayer. Bayer, working wonders every day. Also from Bayer, try Bayer Back and Body to rush relief right to the site of your pain.
Smart Balance Buttery Spread cooks like butter, spreads like butter, and tastes like butter without the cholesterol and high saturated fat, with no hydrogenated oil and no trans fat naturally, not artificially as some spreads. Smart Balance has the right balance of fats to help improve cholesterol as part of the Smart Balance food plan, with award-winning taste endorsed by professional chefs. Smart Balance. You're going to love that buttery taste.
Some insurance companies aren't available when you need them. At 21st Century Insurance, you can always reach a friendly, knowledgeable customer service representative at any time, any day. Whether it's a question about a claim, your policy benefits, or if you want to find out how much you can save by switching to 21st, we'll give you the answers you need. Our licensed agents are standing by to tell you how much you can save by switching to 21st.
21st Century Insurance. Call us now at 1-800-980-5817.
Large cars.
This is Hugo Chavez. By my count, 40 minutes at the podium now in Harlem, a district represented by U.S. Rep. Charles Rangel. Rangel has made it quite clear that no world leader will come into his country, the United States of America, and say the things that Chavez said yesterday at the podium at the UN. There is so much reaction again coming in today. We're only 25 hours removed from, I guess, what would become to be known as the devil's speech during the General Assembly gathering here in New York City. More reaction on Chavez a bit later today, maybe tomorrow too. We should have some polling we're doing at Fox 2 about whether or not the U.S. money going toward the UN should be reconsidered when they're allowing people like Chavez to come here and make the comments that he's making. FoxOnline.com also. If you want to read what Chavez thinks about the U.S., we've posted the entire transcript of his speech online. You can also read the New York Post op-ed response. It's a doozy. FoxNews.com for you right now online. Time now to download this. As if skydiving is not scary enough, keep your eye down here on the screen at a little white dot that's kind of far off in the distance. Keep watching now. Skydiver coming down. That's an airplane that just missed him. He's got the parachute up. The plane's way down here. You can see it in the screen in the distance. And as he gets closer, dropping at about 120 miles an hour, that is close and incredibly lucky for a skydiver. Landing safely a bit later. He will not forget that ride. We've got to go. If you got a question about what we covered today, maybe something we missed here at Fox Online, we're only a click away. Plugged in at foxnews.com, where the news is online all the time. We've said it every day this week. I want to remind you, whole new website, whole new setup and design there online. Designed especially to help it make it easier for you to navigate our website. And with the availability of video on demand now, it is so much easier for you in your office or at home on your blacktop or, your laptop, maybe your BlackBerry someday, maybe even the blacktop someday, to get video on demand of the special features that we provide here at Fox News. FoxNews.com, we encourage you to check out our news site. It's getting better every day. I'm Bill Hemmer, live in New York. It's Thursday. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Down to Mike and Juliet right down the hall now. Good afternoon.
Thanks very much, Bill. Coming up on Dayside, the United Nations located in the heart of New York City, just on the east side over there, on American soil, obviously, and host to the biggest haters of this country ever assembled.
Well, yeah, and applause after Venezuela's President Hugo Chavez right there went so far as to call our president the devil. But look at people applauding.
Is this the respect a country who comes to the aid of Iran, of other countries when disaster strikes, no matter if it's a friend or enemy? Is this what we deserve? And is it time to rethink our foreign policy? We're getting a slew of emails. The audience here is fired up, aren't they?